Circa News' Sarah Carter, there are brand new FBI documents that show the Russian nuclear industry officials kicked back millions and millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation, all while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and helped approve the Uranium One deal, which gave Moscow, Russia, Vladimir Putin control of 20% of American uranium, the foundational materials for nuclear weapons. And tonight, they're also reporting the FBI now has evidence that Russia for years has been doing this, and they're reporting the FBI has evidence that literally they used bribery to gain control over America's uranium industry, all while the Obama administration did nothing. And the Clintons benefited to the tune of nearly $145 million. You want a real Russia collusion story? We've got it. Also, is Congress now going to do its job? Will they investigate these explosive reports immediately? Will the special counsel, Robert Mueller, start looking into this Russian plot to control American uranium? And is the left-wing mainstream media, are they going to stop pushing their lies and conspiracy theories to you, the American people? Will they ever tell us the truth? And that's not all we have tonight. The FBI has confirmed that, in fact, the disgraced former director, James Comey, drafted a letter exonerating Hillary Clinton months before interviewing any key witnesses in the email server scandal. We're going to cover all of this in tonight's Breaking News opening monologue. All right, so the Hill's John Solomon, his colleague over there, Allison Spann, are once again out with an explosive new report. Take a look at this headline from today. FBI uncovered Russian bribery plot before Obama administration approved controversial nuclear deal with Moscow. Now, here's the headline from Sarah Carter. Russia, nuclear firm under FBI investigation, was allowed to purchase U.S. uranium supply. According to these breaking news reports, back in 2009, the FBI, they started gathering evidence, including recordings and emails and witnesses that they talked to, showing that the Russian nuclear industry officials used bribes, kickbacks, money laundering, and other illegal tactics to expand Russia's influence over America's uranium market. Now, in the Hill report, they explain that despite all of the evidence that they had of wrongdoing against Russia, the Obama Justice Department, for some unknown reason, chose not to act and pursue charges. What did they do instead? The Obama administration then went on to approve business deals that benefited Russia, Putin, Moscow greatly, while these threats to our national security were actually going on. These include the 2010, we've talked about it a lot, now we have more details, that Uranium One deal. Hillary Clinton, she signed off on it, she helped approve it. That gave Vladimir Putin control over 20% of America's uranium. Uranium is the foundational material so you can build nuclear weapons. We'll have a lot more on that in just a second. And the 2011 deal, that made it easier for the Russian nuclear subsidiary to sell uranium to U.S. nuclear power plants. Now, the FBI officials told Sarah Carter at Circa News that the Bureau's bribery investigation could have actually been stopped. However, this part is inexcusable. Both reports highlight how the Obama administration kept all of this evidence that they had of Russian bribery secret from Congress and the American people until 5 years after the approval of that Uranium One deal. And when the DOJ finally did go public, this was 2015, it was only to announce a single charge against the Russian at the center of the bribery scheme, and they played it on the down low. Now, keep in mind, after President Trump won in November, President Obama and his administration, they were telling anyone who would listen, Russia interfered with our election. Russia was creating a direct threat to American democracy. Well, if that's the case, why, when they had mountains of evidence that we will reveal tonight of Russian bribery going back to 2009, why then did the Obama administration, and Hillary in particular, sign off on the sale of 20% of America's uranium to Vladimir Putin and the Russians? And speaking of Uranium One, according to the new report from the Hill, the FBI has evidence, including eyewitness accounts, that, quote, Russian nuclear officials routed, pay attention, routed millions of dollars to the U.S. designed to benefit former President Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's charitable foundation during the exact time Secretary of State Hillary Clinton served on a government body that provided a favorable decision to Moscow. Uranium One. Sound familiar? And by the way, we can't forget Peter Schweitzer. He originally exposed this Uranium One deal in his best-selling book, Clinton Cash. Now, all of that is why for months on this program, I have been telling you, Uranium One will be one of the biggest scandals this country has ever seen. Just in case you forgot, let's remind you. Then there's the real Russia collusion story, the Uranium One deal, which I predict will be the biggest news to come out in the next year or two. Where the Secretary of State, remember, she approved handing over up to 20% of America's uranium, the foundational material of nuclear weapons, to Vladimir Putin and the Russians, all while people involved in the deal in Canada, they kicked back over $145 million to the Clinton Foundation. Bill Clinton doubled his speaking fees in Moscow. Tonight, with this new evidence, what we have discovered is the evidence against the Clintons is overwhelming. It is incontrovertible. Hillary Clinton and her husband sold out America to the Russians while millions of dollars flowed to their family foundation. And in the process, Clinton helped create a massive national security risk for every man, woman, and child, giving Vladimir Putin control over American uranium. That material, as I said, you use it to make nuclear warheads. Now, if the liberal, ideological, mainstream media and the Democrats in this country that have been screaming Russia, Russia, Russia for all these months, if they want real Russia collusion, we've got it for them. The evidence is right here. It doesn't even need to be investigated. Just corroborate it. So it's time tonight, and I'm calling on Congress. I'm calling on Robert Mueller, the special counsel. Stop wasting our time and our money trying to find evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. You've been on this for a year. So far, you haven't presented one shred of evidence, except now you can actually follow facts and evidence that we do have on the record. I'm also calling out the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, tonight. He recused himself from the Russia probe. He needs to now do the same. The evidence now shows that Hillary Clinton, the Obama administration, put this country in danger, handing Russia America's uranium, even though, as the Hill reported, there were crimes, bribery, and worse, and blackmail being committed. And where was the liberal mainstream media during all of this? The media that's been running wild with all kinds of conspiracy theories about President Trump and Russia for months and months and months with no evidence? Well, here are some of the more unhinged examples of the left. Listen to their language. It applies to them tonight. It applies to the Clintons tonight. It applies to Obama tonight. Watch this.
But first, we want to start with This Week in Russiagate.
It is as if there are no shoes on the Trump human centipede that are not about Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia.
This cloud about collusion with Russia will hang over him no matter where he stands.
It certainly feels like we're in the opening stages of a devastating political chapter in American history. Evidence is mounting for the president's meddling in the Russia probe.
Tom Friedman said the election hacking is at the caliber of a Pearl Harbor or a 9/11. Do you agree with that?
I completely agree with that.
Donald Trump now sits at the threshold of impeachment.
I personally think it's over. I don't think there's anything that can be done that can stop this at this point. Cacophony, this gushing of lies, problems, questions, chaos that will stop this presidency in its tracks.
You told the Washington Post last week that, quote, there's a smell of treason in the air when it comes to this investigation.
A lot of people are afraid to use the T word, treason, but in the end, that's what people are investigating.
It does look like collusion. It does look like he's listening to Putin more than he is American intelligence. And frankly, I've never seen that before.
The media has been breathless and hysterical over the Russia coverage, yet have you heard any of them even mention Hillary Clinton colluding with Vladimir Putin on Uranium One? Has the media that's supposed to be trusted ever reported on the millions of dollars that were poured into the Clinton Foundation as a result of this deal? Will the press even now bother to look at John Solomon and Sarah Carter's reporting and do their own digging? And while we're at it, did anyone in the media, aside from this show, did they ever ask Julian Assange about who gave him? He's the one that has the information. Who gave him Hillary Clinton and the DNC's emails? We actually asked him, and Julian Assange told us repeatedly, 5 times that I've interviewed him, it wasn't the Russians. There's also the fake news Christopher Steele dossier that was funded in part by the Democratic donors. Guess what? That dossier relied heavily on Russian sources, a false smear to then-candidate Donald Trump. Now, some of the media and some Democrats even repeated these bogus claims. Remember the Ritz, hookers, urinating on a bed? They paid for those lies. By the way, is that not spreading Russia propaganda? Is that not fake news? Is that not Russia trying to influence America's election with fake news? Catherine Herridge is reporting tonight that 2 members of the firm behind that fake news dossier have been subpoenaed to appear before Congress, as it turns out, tomorrow. Now, the lawyer for Fusion GPS is saying tonight his client has been advised to plead the Fifth if they're forced to show up. You know what? If members of Fusion GPS, if they don't want to appear before Congress, they're refusing to talk, let's hold them in contempt of Congress. Maybe they'll go to jail. Let's see. But back to the media. They continue in this country to be exposed as a bunch of rigid, radical, left-wing ideologues. They do not care about the truth. And as I've been saying for years, journalism in America is dead. It's buried. We have an informational crisis in this country. And it's why you, the American people, no longer trust the press, nor should you. Look at this PBS Marist poll from over the summer. A combined 68% said they have not very much or no trust at all in the media. And for good reason. The media is completely abusively biased in this country. They're a bunch of overpaid, rigid, left-wing, radical ideologues, and they no longer care about truth. For example, the network evening newscast tonight, even though these massive news stories are out about Hillary Clinton, the Obama administration, colluding with the Russians, giving them uranium, kickbacks to the Clinton Foundation, they didn't even report on it. It's because it doesn't fit their narrative, their talking points. There's also the fact that those stories are proof positive, that Russia collusion hysteria is now starting to boomerang back on the Democrats. It's something, by the way, I predicted would happen back in June. Take a look. I've been saying that this is all going to boomerang back. No evidence by anybody of any Russia collusion, 11 months of media lying and conspiracy theories. But it did open up the door that, okay, now we got to look at Loretta. Now we got to look at Hillary. And I would argue Hillary is going to be right behind Loretta Lynch in terms of investigation issues. What I said back in June is exactly what is happening now, and it's only going to get worse for Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, the Democrats, the media, and all on the left. Also tonight, the FBI. They released proof that the former director of the FBI, James Comey, had been drafting a letter to exonerate Hillary Clinton in her email server scandal months before interviewing key witnesses, including the former Secretary of State herself. Does this not prove what I've been saying? We don't have equal justice under the law. We have a two-tiered justice system in this country, one for the Clintons and one for the rest of us. And it also proves James Comey acted inappropriately. He deserved to be fired. Now, Comey played politics. He let Clinton off the hook, even though she had secret, top secret, special access program, classified information stored, let's see, in a mom and pop shop bathroom closet. Which, by the way, mishandling of classified information, that's a crime. Destroying classified information, that's a crime. Deleting 33,000 subpoenaed emails, oh, that's called obstruction of justice. And unlike the mainstream media, we care about the truth here. We care about facts. It's why we continue to expose all of these scandals. And tonight, a new level. Breaking news, and this will now come back. Bribery, kickbacks, quid pro quo, America's national security at stake. Joining us exclusively, John Solomon. He's with The Hill. Sarah Carter, Circa News. Sarah, let me start with you. We're talking about bribery. We're talking about blackmail. We're talking about what else that was going on that the Obama Justice Department knew and still gave Putin, Moscow, Russia 20% of our uranium, and the money goes to the Clinton Foundation. Let's talk about it.
Well, back in 2009, the FBI was actually approached by a businessman, by an American businessman, who said, look, I have information on the Russians, and I'm going to give this to you. And they said, would you work with us? They They came to an agreement. He went inside. For 15 months, Sean, for 15 months, the FBI was investigating the Russian nuclear industry and the agencies. They knew that there were kickbacks. They knew that there were bribes. And they knew how dangerous this was to national security. And 15 months had passed in the investigation. And then CFIUS, 13 members of the governing board, approved the Uranium 1 deal to the Russians. I mean, this was something that I contacted FBI officials tonight, FBI sources that were there during that time, and they said the FBI would have had all of this information. It would have been their duty on the board, on the CFIUS board, to report that information. And so now what I'm thinking is, if they did report that information, it's got to be out there. We've got to be able to FOIA it. We've got to be able to see these documents and know what was going on and why the United States government decided to approve a deal that would give 20% of U.S. uranium assets to Vladimir Putin. There's the
John,
connection with Russia.
Let me go to you, John, and your report on the Hill. So the FBI basically has evidence in the form of documents, emails, financial records, eyewitnesses proving the Russians used bribery, kickbacks, extortion, and money laundering to secure the Uranium 1 deal, and about $145 million kicked back to the Clinton Foundation. And they knew it in 2009? They knew it before they even approved the deal?
Yeah, you said in your opening monologue that the Democrats are concerned that Russia's tampered with our election results in 2016. Well, 6 years before that, they tampered with our nuclear security. The case proved that the Russia's nuclear industry had bribed their way and compromised the American trucking company that moved all of Russia's uranium in the United States. That's a national security threat. And for 2 years, the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton, and everybody who's been quoted has said the Obama administration had no knowledge of a national security threat, and that's why they didn't have any problem approving the Uranium 1 deal. Well, guess what? Tonight, we have a real national security threat that was proven in real time in 2009, and it's going to be interesting to see what Congress does. Tomorrow morning, Chuck Grassley has a hearing with Jeff Sessions on the seat, and I think you might see some interesting questions asked.
All right, and Sarah, and this is stunning, that the Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, hid the information. He knew about the bribery, the kickbacks, the extortion, the money, and he also knew, as well as Hillary, and had to sign off along with Hillary Clinton on the deal, even though we know that they're trying to influence every aspect of our security and get control over America's uranium. They still allowed the deal to go through?
Well, and these are many of the same players, right? You had Rod Rosenstein. Rod Rosenstein then was head of this investigation when he was in Maryland, looking at the trucking company. And remember this, you have a trucking company that's moving American uranium that is involved in bribery, kickbacks, and all kinds of issues. And they're moving a national security asset, uranium. And you have Andrew McCabe, who's the deputy director of the FBI now, who was also charged with that investigation. So there's a lot of questions here.
Is Mueller involved in this?
Yes, and Mueller, who was in charge then.
How does he
the
investigate
FBI.
himself? So we got Mueller having to investigate his boss now, Rod Rosenstein, who also, and Andrew McCabe of the FBI, and probably James Comey. They all knew about this.
That's exactly what we're looking at. These are people who actually knew about this. Now, it's up to Congress to ask those questions, to find out, why did you decide to allow the CFIUS deal to go through with Uranium 1? Why did you vote yes on this? What was the FBI
actually looking at? And they knew the Russians were trying to influence all of our uranium in this country. All right, here's the question. I have a final exit question, and we'll have more on this tonight. Did the DOJ, did they deliberately jeopardize America's national security, knowing all of this was going on? In other words, the kickbacks, bribery, extortion, money laundering, allowing this deal to go through without presenting the evidence, and how did Hillary sign off on it and get all this money to the foundation? John, did they risk national security?
I think there's some things we don't know yet. It is possible the Justice Department told the CFIUS members, and they still voted to approve this deal, and it's possible it was kept.
You mean they told them about bribery, extortion, kickbacks, and money laundering, and they still would allow the deal to go through by the Russians in our own country?
We don't know the answer to that yet. That's the question, and I can confirm tonight, I'm reporting this out tonight, Senator Grassley, chairman of the Judiciary Committee, began an investigation last week, specifically asking all the CFIUS members Did you know there was a criminal investigation? This is going to become one of the most important investigations that are going to evolve this fall.
Sarah, I'll give you the last word. What's coming up? How far is this story going to go? Can you give us a hint where we're headed?
I think this story is going to go far. I know as well that Senator Grassley had started this investigation last week and that he had asked very detailed questions to the current CFIUS board members. And those board members will now seek the information that he's asking for, because they're going to be looking at, this is a whole new board that's going to be answering these questions. So it's going to be up to them to tell the truth and to deliver the answers to the American people. And it's going to be up to us to keep pushing this so that answers are delivered, because I do believe national security was at risk. I mean, according to every source I've spoken to.
They knew about it. This is what it proves. There really was a Russia conspiracy, but it's not what the media reported. Great work, both of you. It's amazing the work you guys do, and the rest of the media is ignorant. Now, Peter Schweitzer, also Greg Jarrett. We'll talk more about this. We have a lot more to come on this. Also, President Trump makes a big push tonight for a key part of his agenda. Newt Gingrich is here, and so much more straight ahead.
We believe that our great American flag should be treated with reverence and respect, and that young Americans should be taught to love our country, honor our anthem, and proudly recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, that was the president earlier tonight during a speech in front of the Heritage Foundation, again taking aim at NFL players who kneeled during our national anthem. He also made a major push for a key part of his agenda, tax reform, which every American needs. Watch this.
We need the help of the Heritage Foundation and everyone here tonight to get our tax cuts through the House, through the Senate, and to my desk for signature. So let's give our country the best Christmas present of all: massive tax relief.
We need it, and the president got a big boost today on this front. Washington Post reporting, quote, McCain endorses budget bill and win for GOP tax reform effort. Joining us now, author of the soon-to-be best-selling book Vengeance, just out last week, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. I know you're aware of this Uranium One deal, and now we've got documents, we've got emails, we've got financial records, we've got eyewitnesses that show they knew. The Obama administration knew in 2009 about Russia, top officials, bribery, kickbacks, extortion, and money laundering, and they still signed off on the Uranium One deal, 20% of our uranium in the hands of Russia. And keep in mind, the same Russia that they've been screaming about for a year. Your thoughts on this development?
Well, let me say, first of all, the best news I heard tonight was your report that Senator Grassley is beginning to ask very serious questions, and I hope that the Senate Judiciary Committee is going to open a full-blown investigation. I also hope that Chairman Goodlatte in the House and the House Judiciary Committee will do the same. These are unbelievable charges. You know, if this is true, and there are two fronts here. There's the Russian front, which is unbelievable, and there's the Comey drafting an exoneration of Hillary 2 months before he interviewed her. Now, both of those indicate levels of corruption and dishonesty on a scale that I can't remember in American history. I mean, this whole thing coming together right now, and the way it's coming together, the people who are involved. I mean, I think the average American is going to demand that the House and Senate hold full-blown, clear public hearings, put this stuff on the record. I want to see the draft versions of what Comey was writing 2 months before he even...
Oh, we have it. We got him.
It's no wonder they didn't put her... Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Signed, sealed, delivered, exoneration. Doesn't matter. You mishandle classified information, destroy classified information, and you destroy subpoenaed emails. Why do I think I'd be in jail and you'd be calling me on the phone on Saturday night?
Well, I mean, think about it. If you're Senator Bob Menendez and you're being tried for something, and you suddenly learn that what the Clintons did may be 50 to 100 times bigger and involved national security with Russia, and there's nothing happening to them. I mean, if I was Menendez, I'd think, wow, talk about justice not being fair. And then you look at Comey, who is this great, virtuous person in the Washington Press Corps, and you start saying, wait a second, he's writing an exoneration 2 months before he interviews her. No wonder they didn't put her under oath.
Never mind the dossier.
The whole thing was rigged.
All the media, the Democratic politicians, they quoted the dossier that they used Russian sources for. This is where the media in this country hurts the American people, because they don't do their job. They're agenda-driven. They have made more mistakes in the last year than I've ever seen it, and I thought that it was bad when you were Speaker. I got to transition. I got to ask you about this, how important this tax deal is. How important. Thad Cochran, who's not feeling well, flew back for this thing. McCain, you never know what the hell he's going to do. I mean, he's just flighty as all can be lately.
Look, I think the president was exactly right tonight. I think Speaker Paul Ryan has sent out a note saying for the average working American, it's going to be a $4,000 increase in take-home pay. Work that Kevin Hassett, the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, has put together, $4,000 per family. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see some Democrats decide that they're going to have to vote for this thing. This is the key to the year for the Congress and for the president.
And it has to be done this year.
I love the president's way of putting it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I love the way the president put it tonight. It ought to be a Christmas gift for every American. It'll really get the economy rolling, and nothing can be more important for the Republicans than to focus on getting this done and getting it signed. I would prefer before Thanksgiving, but certainly in early December.
By the way, it is personal with John McCain. When he came back after his surgery, he did say to stop listening to radio and cable hosts like me, and that people like me can go straight to hell. But I didn't take it personally at all. This is important the end of the year, because the timeline is now tough, because the House is on vacation this week. The Senate was on vacation last week. Who takes this much vacation? Which is a side note. Are you confident that at the end of the day, the McCains, the Susan Collinses, those that voted for that are voting for this bill, are they going to be there? Are they going to be Republicans for once? Are they going to get their identity somewhat back, or are they going to bail and screw it up like health care?
No, I think you get your first real test this week. If they can pass the budget resolution this week, that's a huge step in the right direction. I also think they may have a little bit of luck in that I do think there are 3 or 4 Democrats. I mean, you start, if we can drive home for small businesses what a huge tax break it is, for working middle-class Americans what a huge tax break it is. You go out to North Dakota, you go to Montana, you go to Missouri, you go to Indiana. Those are all Democratic seats, to West Virginia, and you're talking about a $4,000 increase per middle-class family.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be pretty tough for those Democrats to go home and vote no.
I saw your comments about Steve Bannon, and yeah, I think I don't want to see the Democrats take over the House or Senate, but I'm with Steve Bannon in this sense, that if Mitch McConnell can't get the job done, Mitch McConnell needs to go. He is not getting the job done. And for him saying, oh, we have excessive expectations. Well, our expectations were raised because, I see you laughing, were raised because people like him were promising to repeal and replace health care for 7 years, and they couldn't get their act together. All right, go ahead, straighten me out. Go ahead.
I'm not going to straighten you out. I want to say, look, you just made a different case than Bannon made. What I responded to with Bannon is he said he was going to run against every Republican except Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz.
Who's up for re-election this year. We go down the list. Everybody he's talking about voted to repeal Obamacare. Everybody he's talking about is going to vote to cut taxes. Everybody he's talking about voted for every single Trump judge. Show me the principled case for Trump. I don't mind if he wants to complain about Mitch. Mitch is a big boy. He'll take care of himself. But that's not the argument here. Bannon is suggesting, and he says it himself, he's going to wage war. Against who? Against Republicans. You know, when we fought Nazi Germany, we didn't start by trying to fight Britain.
Well, he wasn't talking about a real war. I mean, it's the art of political war, and it's obviously. But the point is,
wait a second, Sean.
Yeah.
Wait a second. We're good friends. Well, hold on.
Here it comes.
Bannon said against every Republican senator except Cruz.
He did?
I think that is an absurdity.
Okay, here's what I want. I want Republicans, I wish I could say what I'm thinking, to get their bleep together and do their job. And I think Steve Bannon's saying the same thing. They have really screwed up.
No, he's not.
They have really screwed up in the last 9 months of this year.
Come on, yes.
7.5-year promise is pretty disappointing.
Go
ahead.
You are too good at this to say that. He said a specific thing. I'm reacting to a specific thing. I'm assuming Bannon, who and you and I both know well, I'm assuming Bannon meant what he said. He said he's going to run against every senator except Cruz. I think that's absurd. And if you go check and my column on Friday is going to be about this. You check their records. They voted for every Trump judge.
The only thing I would say,
to repeal Obamacare.
Politicians seem to respond to one thing: fear of losing their power. And I think Alabama was a shot across the bow, the canary in the coal mine.
Sure.
And if they don't organize and get together and get in a room and shut the door and turn off the air conditioning like our framers and founders, and I'll even send them free pizza, which didn't exist for them, and get on the same page and serve the American people, the forgotten men and women. Fear seems to be a good motivator, and I think Bannon is saying, get your act together. And I agree with that sentiment.
Oh, well, get your act together is fine. Trying to beat all the Republicans, I think, is just dumb. And we can have a long debate some night about it. And if you want to invite Steve on, I'll come on with Steve.
All right,
we'll
do an hour. I'd do an hour with you and Steve any day. I think it's important. I really do. All right.
That'd be fun. That'd be quite an evening.
Congratulate. All right, I'll set it up. I'll call him right after the show. Good to see you. Congratulations on the new book. When we come back, Peter Schweitzer, he warned us first about the Uranium One deal. Greg Jarrett, all here with reaction on the Hill and Circa News' big bombshell. We have more information straight ahead. All right, we have more on the explosive report from the Hill's John Solomon and Circa's Sarah Carter that says the FBI now has proof Russian nuclear officials kicked back millions of dollars that benefited the Clinton Foundation prior to the Obama administration's approval of the Uranium One deal. And they knew about bribery, kickbacks, extortion, and money laundering. We also have understood tonight Judicial Watch has found that 2,800 government documents from Uma Abedin were found on Anthony Weiner's laptop. And they might have been classified. Here with the reaction. Someone who wrote extensively about corruption surrounding the Clintons, the president of the Government Accountability Institute, author of Clinton Cash. He first discovered the Uranium One story, and he's also written extensively about it. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. All right, we got to start with you, Mr. Schweitzer. You broke this thing. What do you make of the new developments tonight? They all knew, and they still approved the deal.
Yeah, no, it's huge, Sean, and kudos go out to these reporters for really doggedly going after the story. And by the way, we also need to tip our hat to you, because you've been talking about this for a couple of years when a lot of other people have forgotten about it. This is a massive scandal. It's still shocking to me that there has not been a congressional hearing. There's been no investigation when it's warranted. And my hope is that this new reporting is not only going to get Senator Grassley tomorrow to raise these various serious questions with the Attorney General, but we will actually get an investigation of this by people, whether it's a grand jury, a congressional committee that has subpoena power. It warrants that kind of activity.
Greg, you wrote about this a year ago. I mean, you got excoriated for what you wrote a year ago.
I did. Well, I accused her of potential racketeering, which is using a business as a corrupt criminal enterprise. In this case, her business was a charity, but it was a dual purpose, it appears, because these FBI documents gathered beginning in 2009 seemed to show that the Russians were funneling tens of millions of dollars to that charity.
You know
and
what I
those
suspect?
Are illegal monies, which makes it a criminal enterprise.
So we had Russian operatives in this country. Our Department, Eric Holder knew about it.
Right.
They knew about bribery, kickbacks, extortion, money laundering. But money laundering tells me that here's something I'm going to go out. I wonder if all the money that was donated was washed through Latvia, as they had in one of the reports today, and sent to the Clinton Foundation. I wonder if the money came from Russia.
Could have been. It could have
been, right?
It apparently came from more than a half a dozen sources.
But money did benefit the Bill and Hillary Clinton Foundation. That we know tonight.
Bill Clinton personally was receiving money from the Russian nuclear industry connected to this Uranium One deal. And what really, I think, is making Congress angry is that Eric Holder, who sits on the committee that approved this deal,
with Hillary,
Hillary presides over it. They voted unanimously. He knew about this when the vote took place. And guess who else knew about it, who was supervising all of this? Robert Mueller, who was FBI director, and Rod Rosenstein, who was then U.S. attorney. They were supervisors on this investigation.
Wait a minute.
And
How
they
could they
sat on it.
So if they knew that real Russian influence collusion is happening,
right,
and they did nothing, how could they now sit in judgment the way they are in this case? It seems to me they've all got to be cleared.
They've all got to be fired or they have to resign.
Immediately.
I mean, it totally compromises their integrity. I don't see any other way out.
You know, when you wrote about this, Peter, and I remember we did a lot on Clinton cash. Did you know this much and weren't able to quite put all the pieces together? Does this now make more sense to you based on your early reporting?
It does. We really, in the book, focused on Hillary's role, and we knew that Hillary in 2009 knew, because there were WikiLeaks State Department cables that proved that she was told in those top-secret memos the Russians were trying to corner the world uranium market. So she knew about that, and apparently didn't care. We also pointed out that a lot of these donations, remember, that came to the Clinton Foundation, their signed agreement with President Obama was that they would disclose those donations. As of course, we revealed, these donations, a lot of cases, were not disclosed. They were hidden. And now the question becomes, why were they hidden? And I think these new revelations indicate part of the reason they didn't want this stuff to come to light.
Up to $145 million?
It was $145 million. And think about this, Sean. 9 shareholders in Uranium One, 9, all decided spontaneously to donate to the Clinton Foundation.
I don't believe it.
And a lot of this money... Yeah, no, and a lot of this money was flowing just months before that crucial CFIUS vote to approve this deal. It's really shocking. And
yeah, go ahead, last word.
No, the last word is, and then keep in mind, as the New York Times has reported, Uranium One, now owned by Rosatom, is actually exporting yellowcake from the United States. Part of the agreement for the Russians taking over this company was the uranium had to stay in this company. It's being exported out of the United States, and we don't really know where it's ending up.
Who should be investigating this as of tonight, based on what we learned?
Well, it cannot be Jeff Sessions, because you remember he recused himself from anything related to Hillary Clinton. It cannot now be Rosenstein, because he hid this information when he knew it. Whoever's third in line or fourth in line can be appointed by either Sessions or Rosenstein.
Do you think that Mueller now has to go and Rosenstein has to go?
I do. I mean, hiding this information, not disclosing it to Congress when they had a legal obligation to do so, seems to me to be unconscionable, and they have no more integrity associated now with their Trump collusion.
Now that we know bribery, kickbacks, extortion, and money laundering, I want to know where the money really came from that went to the Clinton Foundation. I want to know where that money came from. Was it funneled through Latvia? Was it funneled through any of these groups? Who gave the money? Where'd the original money come from? $145 million is a lot of money, and it was who benefited? It was Putin and Russia.
Well,
that's the question.
WikiLeaks documents show she was peddling access, and now today we've learned it looks like she was peddling influence.
At the risk of American security.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you both. We will continue all week on this. When we come back, huge developments today as the Harvey Weinstein scandal gets worse. Now, you won't believe which Hollywood executive is now being accused of harassment and which actors. Straight ahead. All right, welcome back to Hannity. So every day we are learning more and more about just how disturbing that casting couch culture is in Hollywood. Now, disgraced producer Harvey Weinstein officially resigned from the board of the Weinstein Company today. Deadline Hollywood reporting tonight that the Los Angeles city attorney will prosecute Weinstein if victims come forward. Now, we'll have the reporter who broke that story on tomorrow. And in a shocking turn of events, Bob Weinstein, Harvey's brother, he too is now accused of sexual harassment. According to reports, he's denying the allegation. And also tonight, the former chairman of DreamWorks, Jeffrey Katzenberg, says there is no way Harvey Weinstein acted alone, saying men around Weinstein protected him, and he described them as, quote, a pack of wolves. And tonight, more Hollywood top frontline actresses are coming forward about harassment that they've received. Actress Reese Witherspoon says that she's experienced sexual harassment and assault, including a director who she says assaulted her when she was just 16 years old. Actress Jennifer Lawrence, she also details how a female producer once made her stand naked in a lineup next to other girls, enticing her to lose weight. Oh my gosh. Joining us now with reaction, Fox News correspondent at large Geraldo Rivera, conservative columnist Monica Crowley. It's the music industry, Monica. It's the TV industry. It's the movie industry. Young people, they have dreams, aspirations, desires, and what happens?
And I would add the music industry, television news, anything that involves a camera or the way you look. These kinds of judgments come into play, and it has an incredibly corrosive effect. It generates moral degradation, and it generates this kind of culture.
But they all knew. The NBC knew and spiked it. The New York Times spiked it. Everyone in Hollywood knew, and they joked about it.
That is a different part of the corruption. I'm talking about mass corruption, Sean. The kind that you just identified is absolutely true, where you've got money, greed, power, and influence all coming into play. Then you have the corruption of sexual abuse and harassment. Jennifer Lawrence is talking about being judged at 15 and sexually harassed. We had Reese Witherspoon at 16. So now, in terms of Harvey Weinstein, not only do we have rape now on the table, rape allegations, but now in these cases, we have charges of child predatory behavior.
But Geraldo, we were warned about this years ago. And you used to, on your old TV show, your syndicated show, you did these stories. You've known about this. You've talked about how screwed up these child actors' lives become.
You know, we have been talking about this scandal in ideological terms, in political terms, but essentially they are criminal. The problem with prosecuting people like Harvey Weinstein or Roman Polanski or Woody Allen, or you name them, is, generally speaking, the complainants come years later. The statute of limitation has told. These women, Jennifer Lawrence and Reese Witherspoon that you mentioned, were all at a gathering in Southern California over the last couple of days, and they came up with what I think is a great idea. Because the criminal prosecution probably will not happen in the vast majority of these cases, like Bill Cosby. You see, they're very rare, the criminal prosecutions, and they are very risky and very shaky cases. Why not have a commission? A commission where you have actors, actresses, producers, directors, where they can tell these stories, name names, and make recommendations. I believe that if you had this commission, not only would you hear these hair-raising stories, but you would also expose a corrupt industry, so corrupt that there are agents that work as pimps. There are stage moms who know exactly what's happening when they push their 15 and 16-year-old daughter into this meeting with this big-bellied, hairy, gold chain-wearing producer. I think that that's the way to get meaningful reform, and it's the only way, Sean.
All right, last word, Monica. We got to break.
Yeah, I think that this is obviously breaking Hollywood wide open. I think it's going to break other industries wide open. And
tip of the iceberg.
I think it is the tip of the iceberg. There were plenty of enablers involved across the board with Harvey Weinstein, and you're going to start to hear more and more stories. I just hope that it leads to some reform and some a much better culture in all of these industries.
All right, more Hannity after the break. With all this talk about Hollywood, for the past 2 years, I've been working on a very special project, and I'm a very proud executive producer. And I wanted to do this because I'm tired of formulaic films that, frankly, go against conservative sensibilities and values. So the award-winning movie, it's award-winning already, is called Let There Be Light. It's in movie theaters October 27th. You can find locations on Hannity.com. Here's a sneak peek, 10 days away. You can go see it.
I can't stop thinking about Davey, you know, and how he looked and how it felt and what he said.
Wait, what? What did he say, Saul?
He looked at me and he said, Daddy, let there be light. And all I wanted to do was I wanted to put my arms around him. And then I felt myself being pulled away. He said it again. He said, let there be light, Daddy.
Here's a hint. You can bring the whole family, bring tissues. That's all I'll say. It's all the time we have left this evening. Always fair and balanced. Stay tuned. Steve Hilton next.